Russell, that was pretty good. That was about as good as you've done today. Thank you, You're excused. You can't leave though. Okay. All right. So, the only thing that we ever really own is our testimony and our attitude. Everything else is transitory, you know? Everything else is transitory. And so one of the things that we're going to do today that we haven't always done, but I think it's really important, and Russell touched on it, we're going to have some incredible testimonies today. And the first one we're going to have is a guy by the name of Fred.reid. Back in the 80s, I was a foreign missionary with Mission to the World, Presbyterian Church in America, first in Ecuador, then later in Jamaica. And I was doing, one of the things you have to do is you have to raise support when you're a missionary, faith missionary. And so one of my supporting churches was in Yazoo City, Mississippi. Yazoo City, Mississippi. And so I was at a missions conference there at Yazoo City, Mississippi, sometime in the 80s. And I met this young man, and he was he graduated from Bellhaven College, where I went to college, and he was in seminary. He was at Reformed Theological Seminary, where I also went. And he was this really nice young man. I was like really impressed with him, but he was the first Christian man I'd ever seen with an earring. I'd never seen a Christian man with an earring, but he had one. And but he was dressed in a suit. I mean, he looked normal other than the earring he had. And then I heard something of his story, and he was dead. He was dead in his trespasses and sin, and God made him alive again. So we're going to have Fred come up here and give his testimony. Okay, Fred.
I got Italian in me. My arms go all over the place. My legs don't work. Woody. Thank you, brother.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey, y'all. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay, even if it's down like this, you can hear. But let's see if we can do this. Okay, perfect. Okay. Hey, guys. My name is Fred.reid. I want to say, what kind of addict am I? I go to BO, okay? I'm a burrito addict. Burritos Anonymous, I can be. NPA, New York Pizzas Anonymous, okay? Just about anything, but primarily cocaine addict, drug addict, okay? And I thank God. Without that, I never would have met God, let me just say that. And I'm Fred.reid, and my wife is Sheila. She's not here, unfortunately. Wherever I go, people tolerate me, maybe like me, they love her. We're missionaries in Japan with AliveAgain missions. Okay, what in the world does a missionary do? I want to tell you about what is a missionary, what a missionary does, and how did I become a missionary. Okay, let me just start with a little bit about missions. I'm a missionary in Japan. And why am I a missionary? It's really, we're going to talk about the 12 steps of AA. And, you know, when I became a Christian, I didn't know the 12 steps, but as I know them now, it's amazing how all of these things were self-evident in everything the whole progression of my Christian life, even leading up to today. You know, Jesus, when one of the last things he said to his disciples, he said to go into all the world and teach them about me, making disciples all the world. Leave where you're born, Israel. Go next door to Samaria, and then to all the world. We know that Paul went all the way to Spain. Thomas went to India. People went all over the world, and that's what he said to do. And what is our 12th step? I mean, it's just amazing, really. It's kind of like the Great Commission, right? Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and anybody else, please, and not just alcoholics, or please share with a cocaine addict also, okay? This message to alcoholics, and to practice these principles, teaching them to obey all that I believe, these principles, in all of your affairs. We're all missionaries. I want to start with that, okay? We're all missionaries. I happen to be a missionary in Japan. I was in Japan just 3 months and 10 days ago. Okay? My wife and I have been back 3 months and 10 days, and we've come back to America because for missions, like Woody was saying, our organization, there's no foundation, there's no fund. All of our support comes from generous people like you all in churches. So we go around every several years because it drops off and it gets lower and lower and lower, and we don't have money to pay our bills, so we got to come back to America. And we visit churches. Tomorrow I'll be at a church in Weston. Last week I was somewhere else. Next week I'll be all around. I think in 3 months and 10 days, I'm in my 22nd bed. Okay, that's part of being a missionary. Woody knows this one, okay? I've been in 5 states and almost 10,000 miles driven. And I don't say that begrudgingly at all. It's a blessing. You know why? Because I get to talk about Jesus and I get to talk about what he's doing in Japan. So 3 months ago, in 10 days, Sheila and I, we packed up our little apartment in Tokyo. We're storing our boxes, and we go to a hotel because we're going to be flying out the next day. I walk downstairs to the lobby about 6 in the morning, and there's a kid on a bench, and he's drinking a beer. This is not normal necessarily for Japan, okay? He's drinking a beer, and I'm like, all right, Lord. I said, I pray, I'm going to go talk to this guy. So I say, let me teach you one Japanese word. Very easy. Ohio. We have a state that, right? Can you say Ohio? Ohio. That's good morning. So I said, Ohio. He kept on drinking the beer. Didn't even look at me. Okay? So I said, you know what? That's all right. He doesn't have to look at me. I'm just going to sit down and talk to him. So I sat down next to him, and I introduced myself. I said, Boku wa Fred.reid.alive.again.japan I said, I'm Fred. I'm from Miami. Still not listening to me. I said, you know what? I'm just going to talk to him, and I'm going to tell him about me. Because I was that kid on a bench one day, a long time ago, drinking a beer, wanting to do a line of Coke or something like that. So I just said, I'm talking. So I said, just listen. Just kept on drinking the beer. I started talking. I said, you know what? I'm Fred, and I'm from South Florida. I'm born in Miami. Grew up in West Palm Beach. I said, I was just like you one time. I found myself often outside drinking a beer, trying to do some cocaine. In fact, I lived on the streets. My mom threw me in a house when I was 15 years old. I lived on boxes. I lived under bridges. I lived on people's couches. And when I was 15 years old, I dropped out of high school. That was the first time he showed me any attention at all. And he looked at me. And he said, when I was 15, I dropped out of high school also. This is rare in Japan. It's about 100% literacy, okay? Dropped out of high school also. He said, can you continue the story? So I said, well, I dropped out of high school, and I said, I was on a bench often doing what you're doing. And I did that, and I continued to do it until I was 19 years old, because I had so much pain in my life, had so much emptiness in my life, confusion, fear, and I was trying to fill that with drugs. But by the time I was 19, I got to the point where I could not afford enough cocaine to fill that emptiness anymore, because the more I filled it, the bigger it got. And my friends were going to college or getting married or getting jobs. And here's Fred, a high school dropout. There was no future for me at all. And I was literally ready to kill myself. But my mom, she'd been slipping me little brochures on drug programs and such. I didn't know anything about 12 steps or AA or anything like that. This is 1980. Russ said he came in 1980. This is about October of 1980. And I had a quarter, okay? If I would have had $100, I would have got a bag of Coke, but I had a quarter. And I knew my mom's number. So I walked down to the store. We didn't have a cell phone at that time. And it didn't want me to push button one either. I dialed her phone number on a payphone. And I called my mom up and said, Mom, can you help me out and bring me in one of these drug programs? I went to her house that night. And anybody's been come off Coke or anything like that, you know that night was a really hard night. But I didn't get high. She brought me to a drug program the next day. And it's one of these residential programs, not like the vacation ones that are here, right? Okay, this was in downtown, the hood, in West Palm Beach, and it was a year program. Everybody there was court ordered. I was the only volunteer to went in this place. So I get in this drug program, And it was about the first day that I opened my little drawer in my little room, and there was a Bible in there. You know how you get Bibles in hotels and things like that? People put Bibles around. Those aren't just people. There's an organization called Gideon's, where people donate, and they put Bibles here because they know that the Bible is the Word of God that's alive, that can change people's hearts. And I'd never read a book in my life. So I sat my pack of Marlboro Reds up there. You could smoke in this place. You know, they had a certain time during the day you could smoke. But I opened up and there was a Bible. Let me tell you this, okay? This is just amazing. So this is from Luke chapter 19, verse 10. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. I didn't know anything about that. But that's what was happening that night, okay? There was a Bible there. And for some reason, this kid that had never read a book in his life, that had been off coke for probably about a day and a half or two, having a hard time sleeping, if you've done this, feeling like crap, starts reading. And I opened this up and I started reading. I didn't know where to read, but I read because there was somebody with me in that room. Okay, the same father of that governor, that guy was my dad too. I didn't know it yet, but he was there with me. And he had me open the book of Mark, okay? We have the Gospel of John. I would never have understood that, okay? Too ethereal for me, way over my head. Mark is action gospel, like pop. In fact, I looked at it last night. I mean, it's Jesus like he's a superhero, okay? You know, I mean, I'm on this bench with Koshi, and I'm talking to him, and I'm telling him about, okay, here, I was like you, dropped out of high school. I'm 19 years old, I'm ready to kill myself. I said, but I wanted this. I said, 病院に行ったんでしょ。前のために、なんか癒すために、行ったんでしょ。I went to a hospital. I explained to him it was a hospital for drug addicts. Okay? And I said, I found the Bible. So then he didn't know what a Bible is. So I said, the Bible is this. And I said, I don't have one for you, but Toshi, you can get it on your phone. I'm going to show you how to do that. But the Bible is something that, it's a love letter from the God that made everything to us. That's how I explain it to him. It's a love letter. And it tells us two main things. It tells us about him, the God of the universe, and his love for us. And it tells us about ourselves and gives us some direction. And it tells us how we can have a relationship with him. That's what the Bible is. And so I started reading that Bible. I said, Toshi, when I read that Bible, I read this. I read about a man named Jesus. And he met a guy with demons. And we call that akure in Japanese, and they know what an akure is, okay? They're real superstitious, like demons all over the place. A demon. And this guy didn't just have one demon, but his name was Legion. Lots of demons. I said, you know what, that's me when I read that. I had those demons in me. And then I read about Jesus healing sick people, and I knew how sick I was. I needed healing. And then Jesus, you know, Adam and Eve, when Adam and Eve broke away from God, wanted to become gods themselves, that's when sickness came into the world, that's when demons came into the world, that's when tornadoes and storms and hurricanes. But we saw in Mark, as I read Mark, I saw Jesus calming the storm. So he had power over demons, he had power over sickness, he had power over death even, and over nature. And I mean, that was Jesus. And then I continued to read. I told Toshi this. I said, in this book I read, and one of the things I read is about Jesus, and he died on the cross. And I said, the reason he died for me, because, I said, dude, and I say dude a lot, because I work with young people. Man, I said, Kingi ne, boku ne, 15歳の時ですね。7-Eleven. We have 7-Elevens in Japan. I said, I burglarized a 7-Eleven. I said, I'm a sinner. I've done so many things wrong. And I read that Jesus was nailed to a cross. I said, I should have those nails put in my hands. And that Jesus died on the cross. And you know what? I deserve to die for everything I did. And the Bible says that Jesus said he went to hell. I should have gone to hell. But Jesus took the nails and died a death and went to hell so that I could never take nails, never die, and never go to hell. And he forgave my sins. He forgave my sins. That's what the Bible told me. And I said, Toshi, let me just ask you a question. I'm sitting with here this morning, okay? My wife's upstairs. I want to tell you, right now, I've got 6 beautiful children, 5 grandchildren. I'm speaking to you in Japanese. I've been in Japan now longer than I've lived in America. I met you on a bench this morning. Let me ask you this, Toshi. Do you think that me meeting you here and what God did to me, he brought me from where he brought me, 15-year-old high school dropout, to be with you today in Tokyo, do you think that's a coincidence? Or do you think that might be a miracle? I've asked a lot of people this. Never has a person said a coincidence. He said, it's a miracle. I said, that's right, it is a miracle, buddy. And that miracle came after you today. God brought me here today. I didn't know I was going to meet you, but I'm here because God wanted you to hear this. Because he's looking for you. Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. That's what I told Toshi. And then I asked him, I said, but Toshi, tell me, why did you drop out of high school when you were 15 years old? He said, I went home from school one day, and I opened the door, and both of my parents were dead. They committed suicide. Yeah, just like you feel right now. My heart just broke. Broke. I took him and I just held him in my arms. I grabbed him and just held him right here, right there. And, in Japan, they don't hug their kids, really. He maybe had never been hugged in life before. That was his first love. And I hugged him. Toshi just followed me around the rest of the day. Then I told him, he said, why do you know hotel? I said, I'm leaving to America tomorrow. He was so distraught. You're leaving to America tomorrow? Yeah, I'm going to America tomorrow. Really? When are you going to be back? I said, well, I've got a ticket to be back in Japan on July 20th next year. And I had a bracelet like this. I said, Toshi, let me give you this bracelet. So I took off the bracelet and gave it to him. I said, I want you to wear this and remember me while I'm gone. And he followed me around that day, and I talked to him more and more. And then later on, I got a picture from him, and he took a snapshot of his arm, and on that, he's got the bracelet on. He said, Fred, next time I see you, I'll be wearing this bracelet. And I've got that picture. We didn't have the audio-visual technology to put it up there, but you can imagine it, I think, in your head. I'm back in America right now. I'm going around the churches. I'll be speaking at a church in Weston, down the road tomorrow, and next week at another church, because we need the funding to be able to go back to Japan, because there's 1 million Toshis there. Okay? 1 million. I do 2 things with the AliveAgain Ministries. One, a lot of missionaries, when you go overseas, the hardest thing to do is figure out how you're going to meet people. You got all these things, they spend money on rooms and rent little places and put up flyers and everything. All I got to do is go to AA Tokyo and show up at a meeting, sit down, and share my experience, strength, and hope about Jesus Christ. Not by higher power. Because when I was 19 years old, just about anything bigger than me was a higher power, a counselor, a doctor, a teacher. I needed the highest power. That was the only thing that was going to change me. And so that's the only thing I talk about. So I go there, and I don't even have to pay for the room. I don't even have to organize it. I just got to go sit there. And then I can meet guys and then have them in my house. The second thing I do is I work with college kids. I work on a campus with 12,000 college kids. Do you know in Japan that there's only 1/4 of 1% Christians? 1/4 of 1%. It's the least reached country in the entire world. There's more Christians per capita in Iran than there are in Japan. I did the numbers on 1/4 of 1%. That's 25 people for every 10,000. But in a lot of places, there's none at all. And I probably got to finish that. How much more time do I have, Woody? How many? 5 more minutes. All right. So God changed my life. And when he changed my life, I'll tell you the rest of the story. I think somebody said, Paul Harvey said. So I told Toshi about becoming a Christian. And I did become a Christian when I was 19. And I was in this drug program. I stayed in that drug program for a year. I needed it, okay? About 6 months into it, you're able to get a job and come back and work and everything. And I met a girl, and she went to a church. And I had never met a Christian. I didn't even know that I became a Christian. I just read the Bible every day, okay? These steps, it's like, seriously? I didn't know any of these steps, but it's like, they're just like self-evident. miniature powerless over alcohol, cocaine. I did that night when God met me as I read the Bible. I just admitted it. Came to believe in a power greater than myself. Yeah, I just believed it. I mean, and made a decision. That night I prayed, God, I prayed from the bottom of my heart, if you could heal this guy full of demons and raise that kid from the dead and heal that sick person and calm the storm, would you please set me free? And when I did that, the next morning, I woke up, a pack of Marlboros were there. I didn't want them. I opened the window, and the sky was bluer than I've ever seen it. I heard the birds. I mean, God completely changed my life. I didn't go through the 12 steps. The 12 steps went through me. So I met this girl about 6 months into it. I've been reading the Bible every day. And she tells me about a church. She said, hey, at our church we have this program. It's called a college and career program for young people. I said, well, I'd love to go, but I haven't been to college and I don't have a career. but I went, and as I started reading the Bible, and I joined this church, and it seemed like everybody in that church had a kid that had a drug problem or something like that. And they went to me, kind of like Russell. I was a weird person in the church. The kid that came to church that was a drug addict and that came to Christ. And I loved doing this. I thought, maybe this is what I want to do. But my pastor said, you got to go to college. How am I going to go to college? I asked my mom and dad. They said, Fred, you were stupid before you did all those drugs. There's no way. Because I did. I failed 7th grade. I was in remedial reading. I'd never read a book in my life. But I went to this college at Woody. Dr. Woody went to. And it was an expensive college. But they had a special scholarship, and they let me go there. And during this time, I shared about what Jesus did with me, my mom and my dad and everything like that. And they all thought I was crazy. In Mark, you find Jesus at one time. His mom and dad thought he was so crazy that they wanted to put him away. They liked me better as a drug addict than as a Christian. So I went to this college, and I got a free scholarship by God's grace. And I say this not for my glory at all, but I ended up graduating magna cum laude, second highest in the university, and with an award, who's in American colleges and universities. That's when my mom and dad believed. They said Freddie might have been able to get off drugs, but there's no way Freddie could have done that. My grandmother, Italian grandmother, she believed and started going to the evangelical church. My brothers and sisters. Okay? So in 1980, I become a Christian. I go to college, then I go to seminary where Woody went to. I went to the Presbyterian church. I wish I would have gone to a church that they didn't make you go to seminary and college. They got those kind of churches too to become preachers. Okay? But I'm glad I did go. So I went to seminary, got married, and then I started thinking, where am I going to do ministry? And I looked around America where I was in Mississippi then. Church on every corner. Any radio station you hear about Jesus. Any TV, anytime. I want to go somewhere where they've never heard the gospel. Because that's what God had done for me and shared. And that's how God brought me to Japan. Let me tell you the last story. So I went to Japan with 4 other couples. And we wanted to start some churches, okay? One day after language school, we went to this new area, and you kind of figure out where are you going to go do this. They do what they call population studies, demographics, where you look for where populations are going. And we went to the city hall and said, you don't need to spend money doing that. Best thing to do is follow a McDonald's. They've already done all the work. So they said, there's going to be a McDonald's being built there. There's nothing there yet, it's just Wrightsfield. But it's going to go from 0 population to 220,000 people. So we went there, and we were doing a prayer walk one day, walking around the area, praying for the future that God would do something. And we met these Japanese ladies. They were walking their dogs. And they see these 4 white guys, like, what are you guys doing here? I mean, really, there'll be literally times that I'm in Japan, I don't even see a foreign face, okay? So they meet us and we say, Ohio, remember that? Ohio, good morning, and we say good morning to them. Why are you here? We're Christians, okay, they said, okay. But why are you here? We came to start churches. And they started laughing, like, they literally laughed, what? Why starting churches? There's never been a church here. There's no Christians here. Are you kidding me? Let me tell you this in closing. I've been now 32 years in Japan. That was 28 years ago. Right now, in that place where there was never a Christian from the beginning of the world, on any given Sunday, there's over 1,000 believers in 20 churches. That doesn't come from a personality. That doesn't come from Fred. That comes from the verse that Woody always says, that the gospel has the power of salvation. Even for the Japanese. Okay? I mean, you don't when you become a Christian in Japan, it doesn't get you in a country club. You don't sell more life insurance. You know, you don't make more friends. You lose friends. Okay, your parents disown you. So that's like this is a really big thing. But that's what God does through missionaries. That's what God is doing through your missionary, Fred and Sheila, AliveAgain missionaries, as we reach addicts and alcoholics throughout Japan, college students, and starting churches. And I would appreciate so much. I got some cards with our pictures on it. It tells a little bit about our story. You can get our newsletter. Keep up with us over the years. Okay? You guys on Zoom too. You can go to the AliveAgain website. There's a little button on the top that says Japan. You can click that. You can read about our stories. We love your prayers. Please partner with us. And the reason I ask you to partner with us is because you're going to be blessed one day. And this is what I'm going to close with this. In the very end of time, when everything is said and done, this is what's going to happen. And I'm going to read this. This is from Revelation. Revelation chapter 7. And this is the end of time. All of us are going to be all of us Christians. Okay? And after this I looked, and there before me there was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the Lamb. And they were wearing white robes, because they were cleansed. And they were holding in their hands palm branches. And with a loud voice they cried, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." And what I just want to tell you this, you pray for Sheila and me. You maybe send a little bit to help us be able to be missionaries. And when you're there among those people, you may have this little Japanese go up to you and say thank you to you. Really, I believe this. I got people that support me. I got Paul, I've got John, I've got other people that support me. And I believe that someday a Japanese, while they're sitting in that throne, is going to go up to them and say thank you. And you're going to look at them and say, "Why are you thanking me?" Because you prayed for Fred and Sheila. Because you supported Fred and Sheila. I wouldn't be here without you. You're partners with us. Okay? This is a partnership. God bless you all.